Maria Louise Anderson had stopped believing in miracles the day her brother overdosed in a Pilsen alley. Yet here she was, 30,000 feet above the Atlantic, pressed against the window of a budget airline seat, heading to a city she could barely pronounce, Abu Dhabi. The name felt foreign on her tongue, like borrowed silk she had no right to touch. The Chicago Public Hospital had sent 4 janitors, 4 expendable bodies, to clean floors in a foreign emergency partnership nobody wanted to explain. Maria had raised her hand when others hesitated, because rent was due and David needed another month at the recovery house. 29 years old, and her hands still smelled of bleach. The Al-Matar Foundation rose from the desert like a glass mirage. Security swept them through corridors, lined with marble, that reflected their cheap uniforms back at them. A British administrator, with tight lips, handed Maria a badge and a map, circling the Advanced Recovery Pavilion in red. "Restricted access," the woman said, without looking up. "You clean at night. You speak to no one. You see nothing." Maria nodded. The pavilion lived in perpetual twilight. Machines hummed their mechanical prayers around a single bed. The patient inside looked more sculpture than human, his face serene beneath oxygen lines and monitors. Dark hair, strong jaw, hands that had never held a mop. SHEIK Rafik Al-Matar, the badge beside his bed read, 33 years old, coma patient. Biotechnology accident. The other janitors whispered about him in the break room. Billionaire heir, genius, victim. Maria thought only about the way his fingers curled slightly on the white sheets, as if holding something invisible. That first night, she worked in silence, mopped, wiped, disappeared into her ritual. But when her cart bumped the bed frame, she froze. The heart monitor had changed rhythm, just for a moment, just barely. She told herself she imagined it. Doctor. Kareem Fatal moved through the foundation like winter itself. Maria had seen him only twice, both times from a distance. Tall, impeccably dressed, with eyes that calculated before they observed. Staff scattered when he approached. Nurses kept their gazes down. Even the marble seemed to hold its breath. On her third night, he appeared in the pavilion doorway. "You." Maria's hand stilled on the IV pole she'd been dusting. "Your name," he said in accented English that somehow made the question sound like an accusation. "Maria Anderson, sir, Chicago." "I know where you're from." He stepped closer, studying her like a specimen. "You've been assigned to this wing every night. Why?" "I was told to come here." "By whom?" "The administrator, Ms. Brennan." His jaw tightened. Something flickered behind his professional mask, too quick to name. "This patient requires absolute discretion." "Do you understand what that means?" "Yes, sir." "It means you see nothing, you hear nothing. You certainly don't touch anything." His gaze moved to the bed, then back to her face. "Medical equipment is delicate. A janitor's curiosity could cause complications." Maria felt heat rise to her cheeks, but kept her voice steady. "I understand." "Good." He turned to leave, then paused. "The night shifts will continue for 3 weeks. After that, you return to Chicago. I suggest you make no unnecessary impressions during your time here." The door whispered shut behind him. Maria waited 5 full minutes before letting herself breathe. That night, she noticed things. The way Dr. Kareem's signature appeared on every chart. The locked cabinet beside the medical station. The surveillance camera that tracked every corner, except a small blind spot near the bathroom. And when she leaned close to adjust the patient's blanket, she saw it again. His index finger twitched, barely, but deliberately. "Can you hear me?" she whispered. Nothing. I'm Maria. I clean this room. If you can hear me, move your finger again. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. The desert night pressed against bulletproof windows. Then, slowly, his finger curled inward. Maria's hand shook as she documented the incident in her phone. Time, 2:47 a.m. Observable response to verbal stimulus. Finger movement, right hand, index. She knew what the rules said. Report everything to the medical staff. Follow protocol. But Dr. Karim's warning still burned in her ears. A janitor's curiosity could cause complications. For 2 days, she said nothing. David called on her day off. His voice carried that careful brightness of someone working very hard to sound okay. The recovery house had extended his stay, but they needed $800 by Friday. Insurance covered only half. I got it, Maria lied, calculating how many double shifts she'd need to cover the gap. You sure? I'm sure. Focus on getting better. After hanging up, she stared at the phone for a long time. Then she opened her photos and looked at the video she'd secretly recorded. Rafiq's finger moving. Proof of consciousness in a man the world believed was gone. That night, she returned to the pavilion early. I know you can hear me, she said quietly, adjusting his pillows with practiced efficiency. I don't know why you're pretending, but I saw you respond. So I'm going to talk to you, and you're going to listen, because honestly, I need someone to talk to, and you're the only person here who can't report me. She told him about David, about the recovery house and the $800 she didn't have, about their mother who died of exhaustion disguised as heart failure, about Chicago winters that froze the brown slush into sculptures of poverty. The thing nobody tells you about being poor, she said, wiping down the monitors, is that it's not the big catastrophes that break you. It's the small, daily humiliations, the way people look through you, the way you learn to apologize for existing in spaces you're temporarily allowed to clean. His finger moved, deliberate, unmistakable. I'm not imagining this, am I? The finger curled twice. Maria's heart hammered against her ribs. The next morning, Maria requested a meeting with Dr. Karim. The nurse looked at her like she'd asked to speak with God. Janitors don't request meetings with the director. It's about the patient in the recovery pavilion. Something shifted in the nurse's expression. Wait here. 20 minutes later, Maria sat in an office that cost more than her apartment. Dr. Karim stood by the window, his back to her, hands clasped behind him. Speak, he said without turning. The patient, Sheikh Rafiq. I think he's conscious. Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. Finally, he turned. His face showed nothing. Explain. I've observed responses, finger movements, changes in heart rate when I speak. He reacts to stimuli. You've observed. The words came soft, dangerous. You, a janitor from Chicago with no medical training, believe you've detected consciousness that our entire neurology team has missed? I'm just reporting what I saw. No. He stepped closer. You're inventing stories to make yourself feel important. Do you understand what you're risking? False reports about VIP patients can create international incidents. The Foundation's reputation depends on precision, not the fantasies of temporary staff. But listen carefully. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You will return to your duties. You will clean. You will remain silent. And if I hear one more word about imaginary consciousness, you'll be on a plane back to Chicago tonight, with a notation in your file that ensures you never work in healthcare again. Am I understood? Maria's throat felt thick. Yes, sir. Good. Now leave. She stood on trembling legs and walked to the door. Miss Anderson. She turned. The mind sees what it wants to see when confronted with death. It's called projection. You might benefit from recognizing that tendency in yourself. Maria didn't sleep that day. She lay in her cramped hotel room, staring at the ceiling, replaying Karim's words. False reports, international incidents, never working healthcare again. But she knew what she'd seen. That night, she entered the pavilion at exactly midnight. The cameras tracked her movements as she went through her routine. Mop, wipe, empty the bins. When she reached the blind spot near the bathroom, she whispered without looking at the bed. "If you're really awake, you need to help me prove it. I just ended my career trying to save you, and your doctor thinks I'm delusional." She waited. Nothing. Disappointment crashed through her. Maybe Karim was right. Maybe she had imagined it all. Projection. The mind seeing what it wants. She finished cleaning and pushed her cart toward the door. Behind her, a machine beeped. Wrong rhythm. Deliberate. Maria froze. The heart monitor pulsed in a pattern. Fast, fast, slow. Fast, fast, slow. Fast, fast, slow. A code, a message. Her hands shook as she approached the bed. Rafik's eyes remained closed, his breathing steady and controlled. But his right hand moved incrementally toward the edge of the mattress, where a small call button lay just out of reach. "You want to press it," she breathed. "You want to signal consciousness." His finger twitched. "Yes, but you can't, because they're watching. Someone's always watching." Another twitch. Maria glanced at the camera, thought about her job, her brother, the $800 he'd promised, thought about what it meant to be seen and believed when you came from a place where no one listened. She made her decision. Moving with practiced efficiency, she knocked her cleaning cart against the medical station. Bottles scattered. The crash echoed through the pavilion, and in that moment of chaos, as the camera pivoted and the night nurse rushed in, Maria pressed the call button herself. "The patient moved," she said loudly. "I saw him move." Chaos erupted in slow motion. The night nurse hit the emergency alert. Within minutes, the pavilion filled with medical staff. Dr. Karim arrived last, still buttoning his shirt, his face a mask of cold fury. "Everyone out," he commanded. "Except you." He pointed at Maria. The room emptied. Maria stood by the wall, trying to become invisible, watching as Karim examined Rafik with methodical precision. Pupils, reflexes, verbal response tests. The man on the bed remained perfectly still. "There's nothing," Karim said finally. "No change whatsoever. But the call button, you pressed it in a moment of attention-seeking hysteria." He turned to face her. "I warned you, Miss Anderson. You have 30 minutes to pack your belongings. Security will escort you to the airport." "Wait. This conversation is over." Maria felt the room tilting. Everything she'd risked, everything she'd seen, reduced to hysteria and delusion. "Dr. Karim," a voice croaked from the bed. They both spun. Rafik's eyes had opened. Dark brown, conscious, furious. "She's telling the truth," he whispered in heavily accented English. "I've been awake for days." Karim's face drained of color. "That's impossible. The scans were read by you." Rafik's voice grew stronger. "Only by you." "Why is that, doctor? Why have I been kept sedated when my cognitive functions returned weeks ago?" "You're confused. The trauma. I remember everything. The lab explosion, waking up 3 weeks ago, the injections you gave me every night, the documents you had my unconscious hand sign." His gaze shifted to Maria. "She saved me by refusing to be invisible." Karim's hand moved toward the medication cabinet. "I wouldn't," Rafik said quietly. "Miss Anderson, the call button again. Please. This time ask for security and legal counsel. I believe Dr. Karim has been embezzling from my foundation while everyone believed I was incapacitated. This is absurd. The experimental neural drugs, the Swiss accounts, the fabricated treatment protocols. Rafiq's voice carried the weight of controlled fury. "I heard everything you discussed in this room, believing I was safely unconscious. Every single word." The next hours blurred together like watercolors in rain. Security arrived, then lawyers, then hospital administrators, speaking in rapid Arabic and English. Maria gave her statement 3 times to 3 different officials. She showed them the videos on her phone, the timestamps, the observations she documented, because her mother always said, "When you're poor, nobody believes you unless you keep receipts." Dr. Karim was escorted out in handcuffs, still protesting his innocence, still insisting on patient confusion and post-traumatic delusion. Maria sat in an empty conference room at dawn, drinking terrible coffee, trying to process that she still had a job, that she hadn't been deported, that the billionaire in the hospital bed had defended her. "Miss Anderson." She looked up. Rafiq stood in the doorway, supported by a nurse. He looked smaller without the bed, more human, vulnerable. "They said you shouldn't be walking yet." "They say many things." He lowered himself carefully into the chair across from her. "Thank you. That seems insufficient, but I don't know what else to say." "You don't need to thank me. I just did what was right." "No." His gaze held hers. "You risked everything when no one would have blamed you for staying silent. You believed in something you couldn't prove. That's rare, especially here, where proof is currency and doubt is expensive. I grew up in a place where people's words don't count for much, so you learn to see other things, small things. The truth people carry in their hands and eyes. What did you see in me? Someone trying very hard to survive something impossible." He smiled. It transformed his face completely. "You're perceptive, Miss Anderson, dangerously so." "Maria, please." "Maria." He tested the name. "I'm Rafiq, though you probably knew that from the very expensive placard by my bed." She laughed. The sound surprised them both. "The investigation will take weeks," he said. "They need me to testify, give depositions. I'm going to be trapped here for a while. And honestly, I don't trust anyone in this building anymore, except you. I'm just a janitor. No, you're the woman who heard me when I couldn't speak." Maria stayed, not as a janitor. The foundation couldn't legally allow her near cleaning supplies after she'd become a witness in a criminal investigation. Instead, she was assigned as Rafiq's personal liaison, a vague title that meant she accompanied him to physical therapy, helped manage his schedule, and occasionally stopped him from pushing himself too hard. "You need to rest," she said on the 4th day, watching him struggle through another round of leg exercises. "I've been resting for weeks." "You were in a medically induced coma. That's different." "Is it?" He gripped the parallel bars, sweat beading on his forehead. "I feel like I've been asleep for years, like I missed everything important while lying in that bed." "What did you miss?" He glanced at her. "Living. I spent so long building things, expanding the business, managing reputation, and then one day I'm in a lab explosion and the man I trusted most tries to steal everything while I'm helpless. Makes you wonder what the point was. The point is, you survived. Because you refused to be quiet." Something hung in the air between them. Something neither of them knew how to name. That evening, Maria received a video call from David. His face filled her phone screen, clearer-eyed than she'd seen him in months. "They're letting me out next week," he said. "Full program completion. I got a job lined up at a garage in Logan Square." "David, that's amazing." "Yeah," he smiled. "Mom would be proud, right?" She would be so proud. After hanging up, Maria found herself crying in the empty corridor. Relief, exhaustion, hope. Everything she'd been holding back for months. "Maria?" She turned. Rafiq stood there, leaning on his cane, concern etching lines around his eyes. I'm fine. Just good news. My brother's getting out of rehab. Then why tears? Because I didn't think we'd make it, either of us, and somehow we did. He moved closer. You saved him too, while you were saving me. I didn't save anyone. People save themselves. I just happened to be there. No, Rafik said softly. You refused to look away. That's different. That's everything. The investigation concluded after 5 weeks. Dr. Karim had embezzled nearly $2 million over 3 years, using Rafik's coma to accelerate the theft. He'd fabricated treatment protocols to justify experimental drugs that kept Rafik unconscious longer than medically necessary. The scheme had been elegant, profitable, and would have continued indefinitely if not for a janitor from Chicago who noticed a finger twitch. The media descended like locusts. Cameras, interviews, headlines in 3 languages. Rafik held a press conference. He stood before the microphones, still recovering, but steady, and thanked Maria publicly, called her the Foundation's moral compass, announced a new department dedicated to patient advocacy and humanized care. Then he offered her the position as director. Maria stood at the back of the conference hall, watching this unfold, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. This wasn't her story. She cleaned floors. She survived. She didn't direct departments or stand in marble halls accepting titles. Afterwards, she found Rafik in his office. I can't accept the position. He looked up from the papers on his desk. Why not? Because I'm not qualified. I have a high school diploma and 6 years of cleaning experience. I don't know how to run a department. You know how to see people. That's the only qualification that matters. Rafik, I'm not offering this out of gratitude. He stood, moved around the desk. I'm offering it because you're the first person in years who told me the truth when it cost you everything. That's the kind of integrity this place needs. That's what I need. I have a brother in Chicago, a life there. Bring him. The foundation provides housing, medical coverage. David could continue his recovery here with the best support available. Why does this matter so much to you? He hesitated. Then, because when I was lying in that bed, unable to move or speak, listening to Karim discuss how to liquidate my assets, I felt more alone than I've ever felt. And then you walked in, a stranger who had no reason to care. And you spoke to me like I was human, not an heir, not a patient, just a person. His voice cracked slightly. You gave me back my dignity before you gave me back my consciousness. How do I repay that? You don't owe me anything. Then do it for yourself. Build something that matters. Help people who fall through cracks the way you almost did. Maria returned to Chicago for 2 weeks. She helped David move into a new apartment, attended his first day at the garage, cleaned out their mother's storage unit, and finally let herself cry over the woman who'd worked herself to death trying to give them better. On the last night, David asked the question she'd been avoiding. You're going back, aren't you? The job is real, David. Full salary. Housing. It's everything we needed. Question mark. Is it the job? Or is it him? Maria looked at her brother. When had he gotten so perceptive? Both. Maybe. I don't know yet. Mom would tell you to stop overthinking it. Mom would tell me not to trust rich men. Mom would tell you that good people exist in all tax brackets, and that when someone sees you for real, you hold on to that. 2 weeks later, Maria stood at Abu Dhabi International Airport. Rafik waited at arrivals, without bodyguards, without fanfare. His arm was out of the sling. He stood straighter. When he saw her, his face transformed. You came back. I came back, though I negotiated a higher salary and housing for David too. Naturally, you're an excellent negotiator. I learned from the best. Poverty teaches you to fight for everything. They walked through the terminal together. Around them, the city gleamed with impossible wealth. But Maria no longer felt like she didn't belong. She'd earned her place. Not through money or birth, but through the simple, radical act of refusing to be invisible. "What happens now?" Rafik asked as they reached his car. "Now I build a department that makes sure no patient is ever ignored the way you were. That cleaners and nurses and families have voices that matter. That dignity isn't a luxury reserved for VIP wings. And us?" She looked at him, really looked, saw the man who'd been powerful enough to demand her silence, but vulnerable enough to need her voice. The heir who'd lost everything and found himself in the process. "I don't know yet," she said honestly. "I know I trust you. I know something matters here, but I've spent my whole life learning not to hope for things I can't afford." "Then let me show you." His hand found hers. "That hope isn't a luxury. It's a birthright, and you've already paid more than enough to deserve it." 12 months later, the Al-Matar Foundation reopened its patient advocacy wing. Maria stood at the podium, delivering the keynote address to an audience of healthcare professionals from 40 countries. She spoke about dignity, about seeing the invisible, about the power of one woman refusing to stay silent. Afterwards, Rafik took her hand in front of everyone. The cameras captured the moment he knelt, the ring he offered, the question he asked. "You healed me without medicine," he said. "You taught me to live beyond survival. Will you continue teaching me? Will you marry me?" Maria looked at the man she'd saved by accident, the man who'd saved her right back. "Yes," she said, "on one condition. Anything. We build this together, equal partners. No pedestals, no invisibility. Just two people trying to make broken systems a little more human." He stood and kissed her. The room erupted in applause. But Maria heard only the sound of her own heartbeat and remembered that first night in the pavilion. When she'd been nothing but a janitor in a foreign city, when a single finger twitch had changed everything. David watched from Chicago via livestream. In his apartment above the garage, he smiled and thought his mother would have loved this. Would have loved seeing her daughter stand in marble halls and refuse to bow. The love born from pain and courage had become something bigger. A foundation built not on wealth, but on the revolutionary act of seeing each other, truly, completely, without conditions. And when Maria and Rafik left the ceremony hand in hand, they carried that truth forward. That dignity isn't given, it's recognized. And that sometimes in the darkest places, a voice refusing to be silenced can wake not just one person, but an entire system. The story of the janitor and the sheikh became legend. But those who knew them understood the real miracle wasn't in the dramatic rescue or the romance that followed. It was in the decision to care when caring cost everything, to speak when silence was safer, to see humanity where others saw only function and hierarchy. And that, more than wealth or power, was what changed the world.